I think it's already recording. So.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone that's joining us right now. We'll wait just another few minutes or maybe a minute before we get started here and sort of reach critical mass with many of our attendees. We've had great registration and look forward to great attendance for today's webinar. So thank you for joining us. We'll get started in just a moment.
Great.
I do just want to remind everybody as you're entering here, we do have this set up in a meeting format, not in a webinar format. So you may be unmuted right now. So just be conscious of that. I'm going to remind you again in a moment, but please go ahead and mute yourself at this time if you're not already. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to CreativeOhio's inaugural CoLab Professional Development Webinar. This is a new quarterly series that we are offering to the creative industries of Ohio and to our member organizations. I'm Sarah Sisser. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of CreativeOhio. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with our work, we are the collective statewide voice for Ohio's creative industries. We are driven by over 130 member organizations. We provide leadership, advocacy, and support to strengthen and enhance Ohio through arts and culture. Many of you may know us by our former names as well, Ohio Citizens for the Arts, but CreativeOhio provides legislative advocacy at the state, local, and federal levels on the issues that affect your budget and your mission as artists and as arts and culture organizations. I began my work with CreativeOhio in December of last year after having served as the executive director of an Ohio museum for the last decade. I also currently serve as chair of the Ohio Humanities Council, which is the state-based partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. My career as a nonprofit executive in arts and culture certainly informs the work that I'm doing now in arts advocacy leadership. CreativeOhio is currently evaluating the many ways that it can, does, and maybe should be helping to inform and elevate our sector. And so to that end, here are some of the programs that we offer beyond our traditional legislative advocacy, which we are doing year-round on your behalf with a great team of lobbyists that we work with. So we do connecting point calls, which are monthly calls that we lead with executives in several different subsectors in creative industries. So we have a monthly call with our regional arts directors, regional arts council directors, our producing theater executives, our art museum executives, and we're looking to stand up those calls in several other key industries as well. We have our annual Champion Advocacy Awards, which we move to a different part of the state. And so be aware of some announcements coming out later this summer about where we'll be for this year's Advocacy Awards in the fourth quarter. We are also today launching this quarterly webinar series and look forward to being able to provide you with some great opportunities for continuing education and professional development on a wide range of topics. And I would also encourage you to frequently check out our public policy page on our website at creativeoh.org. If you're not receiving our monthly newsletter, e-newsletter, which has a connection to this public policy page, I hope you'll sign up to receive it. And we are making sure that we provide you with the most timely updates in terms of the legislative landscape and what's happening at the State House so that it can better inform your work. I mentioned that we are membership driven. And many of the organizations attending today are members of CreativeOhio. So if you are currently a member, thank you very much for your support and engagement. If you're not a member, but you're curious about what membership entails and how CreativeOhio might be able to help your organization as a partner in advocacy, please visit our website at creativeoh.org. And you can click on Join Us to learn more. You can also reach out to me personally at any time. I would encourage you to do so. And my contact information will be available at the end of today's program. So just a few quick points of housekeeping before we get started today. As I mentioned right off the bat, please keep yourself muted. We did want to keep this in a meeting format versus a webinar format so that we could have some more opportunity for connectivity. But that means that we need you to keep yourself muted and conscious that you can be heard. If you have any questions, and I hope that you will as we move through the presentation today, please put those in the chat at any point, and our moderator today will then field those questions during the program and or at the Q&A at the end of today's presentation. So our topic today is about distinguishing between philanthropic contributions to your organization from corporations and marketing sponsorship opportunities that your arts organization may be uniquely poised to provide to corporate partners. We're looking not just at arts organizations for examples of how this might work, but to the sports world as well to see what we can learn. And our panelists today have decades of combined experience in both professional sports and arts marketing. So to kick things off today, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Tim Birch. Tim has worked in the sports and entertainment industry for more than 30 years, beginning his career with the Cleveland Crunch before transitioning to sales manager for the NBA's Cleveland Cavaliers. There, he helped to open Gund Arena, which is now Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. For those of us who grew up with the Gund Arena and Jacobs Field, it will always be the Gund and the Jake. And he was also an operational lead for the host of the 1997 NBA All-Star Game. The renowned Playhouse Square then enlisted Tim to become the organization's first director of sales, followed by roles as vice president of retail sales, sponsorship, and technology, and senior vice president of operations, technology, and public affairs. During his tenure at Playhouse Square, he grew the ticket season base from 12,000 to more than 20,000. He used his prior sports experience to implement sports marketing concepts and developed a formal sponsorship sales program that infused new revenue representing more than $2 million to the bottom line annually. He also oversaw the capital budget for the theaters and Playhouse Square's operations, including food and beverage, housekeeping, maintenance, security, and parking, and worked closely with Playhouse Square's district restaurant owners and operators. In May of 2023, Tim began a consulting career concentrating on the entertainment and performing arts industries. Be Seen Arts Consulting is now helping arts organizations realize new revenue streams and redevelop theater districts. Tim, take it away, and thanks for being with us today.
Well, Sarah, I should have given you a much shorter bio. That was, I think that says I'm old. So, but thank you very much. We're excited to give you our interpretation of sponsorship, or a term that we like to call partnership marketing versus philanthropic giving. As organizations, we constantly seek new revenue streams. So the approach we want to discuss today might be right for your organization, or it might not be. At minimum, we hope this conversation will intrigue you enough and encourage you to do some other research. This panel today, I'll have them introduce themselves in a moment, but has an extensive amount of experience, as Sarah mentioned, in sports marketing. We're pleased to share some of those ideas and knowledge in this space. I do want to stress this is not a get-rich-quick scheme, and this can be disruptive at times to the traditional methods, and it takes time, strategy, and organizational buy-in. But if done right, it can be very rewarding. So, as Sarah mentioned, we do want to allow you to ask questions, put them in the chat. I'll be reviewing some of those. And if for some reason I miss it, I think we have the hand raised icon there that you can do as well. And we will try to get that. So I don't want to take too much time with me, because I really want to get the experts in the room here going. So let's go Randy, Ryan, and then Carol, and then I'll pick it up after that. So Randy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yep, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me. It's a privilege to be a part, and appreciate everybody joining the webinar today. And hopefully you walk away with at least one, if not several things from today's webinar. Randy Domain, I was in the sports industry for 28 plus years. The vast majority of that time overseeing sponsorship teams in the NFL, NBA, Cleveland Cavaliers, Cleveland Browns. Most recently, I was a part of a very disruptive agency. The agency was called One Team Partners. I was the sixth employee at this startup. It was a joint venture between the National Football League Players Association, their union, and Major League Baseball Players Association, and a private equity called Red Capital. In essence, we own the licensing rights, or if you hear the term NIL today, we own the NIL and licensing rights to roughly 20,000 athletes. So my job there was I built out sponsorship, athlete marketing, content and production business unit, along with an omni-channel digital marketing business unit. If you all understand private equity comes in, they invest here, they exit at a significantly larger amount. I was fortunate enough to be a part of an exit and to buy myself some time. I started another agency called Digital Marketing, and my passion is sponsorship. So most recently, I've been working with Tim and identifying opportunities in the theater and in the arts, and there are plenty of them, to come out and help you all generate more money. So thank you for having me.
Thanks. Brian?
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to be one of the folks talking to you today about what is near and dear to our heart is sponsorship and partnership marketing. My name is Ryan Robbins. Currently, I'm the Vice President of Business Development at the Hall of Fame Village in Canton. My career, much like Randy, is almost 25 years in professional sports. I worked for the New Orleans Saints, the Cleveland Browns, Chicago Fire in Major League Soccer, the Oakland Raiders when they were still the Oakland Raiders, now Las Vegas Raiders. From 2012 to 2019, was with the Cleveland Indians, now Guardians. And before I joined the Village in the fall of 2019. Our property here, if you don't know, is a 120-acre sports and entertainment complex. It's surrounding the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. And what some of you may determine to do after this call is some strategy around assets and selling partnerships to corporations in your own facilities. When I got here, we were 116 homes that we had bought and a bunch of dirt, and we had to create everything pretty much from scratch and start selling and driving revenue. So much like you guys, there may be some things that you could potentially create in your facilities, which is very similar to what we've done here at the Village. And the other part I would mention too, a passion for education and teaching. And I've been a adjunct professor. It was 2 years at Kent State, and I've been at Baldwin Wallace in Berea for the past 4 years, teaching sponsorship and sports marketing.
Thank you. And finally, Carol.
Hello, everybody. My background includes developing marketing strategies, public relation campaigns, programs, corporate sponsorship for retail, professional, amateur sports, professional sports, art and economic development organizations, international hospitality corporations, and sports venues. As Chief Marketing Officer at Mont, I'm responsible for the overall strategic planning and implementation of marketing partnership and communication efforts for 8 divisions. As Vice President of Marketing and Sales for the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, I directed corporate sales, recruitment, revenue generation, marketing functions, planning and management of public affairs and communication efforts for high-level events such as the International Children's Games, the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, the National Senior Games, and so forth. In my role with Hard Rock International, I included communications, partnerships, media placements, and budgets. I was Director of Marketing for Forest City Enterprises and Tower City Center, and I also worked as a co-director of a community arts school with 2,500 annual students. So that's my background in a nutshell.
Thank you. All right.
You're
Jill
welcome.
can move us forward one, I think. As we've already displayed here, we've got tons of sports marketing experience. I have over 25 plus years in arts marketing partnerships, and with Carol's skill in brand marketing, I think is why we wanted to also include it from a different perspective. So first, let's just set a basic guideline here. So what's the difference? I know we came up with a little catchy title here, but distinguishing between the two, because a lot of times we'll use that generic term almost like Kleenex for sponsorship. But in essence, boiling it all down, philanthropy is a gift, a donation's a gift. Sponsorship / marketing partnership, and that's why we kind of like that term a little better, is a business transaction. There's an expectations that a corporation, a brand has to make sure that their return on investment or return on ad spend is executed. So with that, Randy, why don't you talk us through what is the opportunity that exists in the sponsorship world?
Yeah, and
Partnership world.
yeah, and before we begin, just so everybody understands, if I use the term sponsorship or partnership, they're one and the same. And really, when we refer to a sponsorship is really, to give you an example, your local insurance agent sponsoring the Little League baseball team down the street. That's really a sponsorship. Partnerships is the term we like to use more. But when we get into legalese, I have to use the term sponsorship. So I want to first of all let everybody know that. Secondly, when we talk today, I'm going to use terms like brands. And so when I say brands, I mean a brand like Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Colgate. That's what I mean by brand. And then when I say property, I'm going to mean, it could mean either sports team, venue, or it could mean theater. It could mean the arts. So I just want to start with that. Last year, $93 billion was spent in sports sponsorship. So let's talk about why brands spend on sponsorship. And at its core, from a linear perspective, this is what a sponsorship is. If I'm looking at it from a linear perspective, and I'll use my ears as the example. So in this year, you have brand, okay? And on this side, you have property. And in the middle, or excuse me, you have brand, you have fan, and you have property in the middle. So at the end of the day, what every brand is coveting and trying to do is to reach consumers through the passion points of fans. So within every human being's DNA, we have attributes like loyalty, passion, love, and brands covet these attributes from a consumer's perspective. So I would ask you to think about yourselves for a second. What brands do you support on a regular basis, and why is it you support them? And it's because of their brand positioning aligns with yours. So in other words, look at Crest toothpaste. And Crest, if anybody remembers, it was, look, Ma, no more cavities. And I might be showing my age there with that tagline. Or BMW, the ultimate driving machine. If you've ever driven a BMW, you know what we mean by that. It's that brand have attributes that they're trying to align with, your passion points. So yes, you did switch. Thank you. So, brands want consumers to feel a certain way about their brand. They want to own the hearts and the minds of consumers. And so they tap into those attributes and emotions through the passions consumers have via things like sports sponsorship, or in this case, what we're talking about today, I'm just going to use the term loosely, the arts. Maybe some of you in this meeting don't realize the value that you have built within what each of you do. And I would ask each of you, do you have customers or fans that frequent your establishments? And do you have fans who positively talk about your establishment? Are they demonstrating loyalty, passion, and love for your property? Yes, they absolutely are, which is exactly what brands are looking for in consumers. This is why brands spend billions of dollars on sponsorships every single year. We feel very bullish that the arts are filled with passion points with inside consumers that we would argue in some cases are stronger than some of the most loyal fans. And when you look at the arts and theater, people are very proud to say they're season ticket holders or that they attend certain events. And I would even argue they're more passionate than some of the most passionate sports fans. So you all have value that brands want to tap into and learn more about. We can help you identify what you have to position yourself with brands so they pay for it. So basically, you are an impression. You have impressions that walk through your doors every single day, that talk about you every single day, that love you every day, and brands covet that about consumers. So let's take a quick example to consider. Recently, we started working with CAPA, the Columbus Association for the Performing Arts. Last year, they had 720,000 fans who attended their events. Now, to put that into perspective, the Cleveland Browns had 650,000 total fans, but in our mind, who walked through the stadium doors. So, but in our mind, what do we always think? We think that sports are bigger than the arts. But I just gave you a demonstration to show you that that's not always the case. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, the Cleveland Browns are on television, and you're absolutely right. There is TV and media value with that. However, what some of you may not realize is that the value of only those 650,000 fans who are walking through those doors represent about 40% of the overall revenue that's generated from sponsorship sales for the Browns. That result is millions and millions of dollars. And so what we're trying to help you understand today is that you have value. And in a lot of cases, you have greater value than what you may be thinking that you have. And as you think about sponsorships, and if you're going out and asking for sponsorships now, maybe you're not asking for the right amount of money. Maybe you should be asking for more. The other thing I'd close on this with is, before we move to the next slide, that makes you different, very, very different than sports, is that with sports, you have a winner and you have a loser every single game. And 50% of the time, they're going to walk out of that event unhappy. In the arts, you never have to control that. And that is a huge differentiator with what it is that you have to offer that sports has to offer, along with the very passionate base of fans. And I use the fans, but you all have fans. We call them fans. They're customers, season ticket holders, but at the end of the day, they're fans, and that's the way brands look at them. You have fans who are very passionate as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Rain. That gives a real kind of overview of the why brands want to get involved with the arts, because it's another mechanism to reach them through you. So, and we're going to talk a little more about some case studies on how we can do that and execute it. But Ryan, I think one of the questions I have for you is really, you don't have a team. I mean, the Football Hall of Fame and Village is a venue. Yes, there's sports, XFL, I think, plays games there, and there's other activities that come and go, much like a performing arts center or a theater might have a rental for a concert and things. So how do you take care of your current partners, but also how do you take care of the ones that might be traveling with that said tour or sport?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Tim, we have all kinds of different stakeholders when it comes to our different events. So we have the Pro Football Hall of Fame runs the enshrinement and the Hall of Fame game. We run all the concerts and shows, but those could be where we're co-promoting it with a performer, or it could be the performer comes and buys out our venue. So that gives different access to different partners and that kind of thing. Or you could have a USFL that comes in and rents it, and they control the digital media, but we control the static opportunities in the building. If we sell a stadium partnership for our stadium, which is Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium, it seats 23,000 people, that partner gets that asset for every event. If it's a physical asset, if it's a food and beverage category, that kind of stuff. So what we generally try to do is, if a venue comes in or a performer comes in, we'll try to figure out what they're open to. And if from a sponsorship perspective, if we're co-promoting it, then we obviously want to control the partnership. We want to drive revenue into a title partnership or a presenting partnership. Much like a Broadway series at Playhouse Square. If not, then there's a comedy show that's coming in the summer for our venue, which has been very popular. We announced a few weeks ago, which highlights Bert Kreischer. And we have a shared sponsorship model with his crew. So I'm on the street trying to sell a presenting partnership for that comedy show. And we'll benefit by doing that by a shared sponsorship model.
Okay, so on this slide here, we've put together a few categories because this is typical. You've got your buildings, your museums, your performing arts centers, other performance spaces. You've got resident companies, individual artists. So why don't you walk us through, like, you guys are talking way up here. I'm starting to get lost. Where do I start?
I mean, there's two big places to start. First, get with your finance team, your accounting team, the vendor list of people that all your venues are spending money with. It would flabbergast you to understand how much money is going out with partners that aren't spending red cent with your companies. And maybe it's hospitality, you're selling season ticket packages. All that goes to revenue. It could be a company that is a brand, like Randy mentioned and explained. Maybe it's a brand that, we can drive people to retail. So the first one would be, look through your vendor list, partner with somebody in finance and try to knock those out, one at a time. There's a lot of blocking and tackling there. But the other thing is, as Tim, put in here, the bullet point is focus on what you have. You don't necessarily need to create all these different programs and things that are going to take time and approvals and everything else. Focus on what you have. I would assume most of your venues sell food and beverage. So Coca-Cola, Randy mentioned Pepsi. If you sell alcohol, there's beer companies, there's spirits companies, there's seltzer companies. There's what we call RTDs, ready to drink. So those are canned cocktails. Those canned cocktails and those RTDs are very popular from a concession perspective because if your bartender is not mixing a drink, your line goes a lot faster. You can serve more drinks in that intermission before the lights start flickering as the warning to go back into the venue. So RTDs and canned beverages, a lot better than draft in you guys' scenario. Sports is starting to go that direction as well. You have food beverage, you have soft pretzel companies, you have nacho companies, you have Sugardale hot dogs or Nathan's hot dogs. All the food and beverage is probably fairly simplistic. But those are companies that will pay for access to your customers. To Tim and Randy's point, you guys have fans that are coming in, and those companies would love to have access to a venue like yours that, quite frankly, has more shows than the sports team does because you guys are playing 5 to 7 days a week rather than 10 Cleveland Browns games.
Yeah, and let me interject on that topic. Your spend with these companies is probably not going to justify the ask. So that's why the package becomes important. But it's also not what you're going to spend with them. It's what they're going to be able to sell through you, not to you. And so that's a very important subtlety that you need to make, that we're giving you an opportunity for sampling and some other opportunities that may give you an entree to reach that audience out in the market, and another partnership like a Giant Eagle or Myers or Kroger's or Speedways of the world. So that is something to note. Resident companies, they're embedded inside of a performing arts center. I've got listed here a series entitlement. Why don't you talk a little bit about entitlements and bundling of?
Yeah, from an entitlement perspective, I mean, if you look at theater or theaters in your facilities, there's lots of opportunities where brands are looking at impressions of, you're putting them in your email blast and you're putting their logo on doors or in vestibules in a tasteful way so it doesn't ruin the experience of the theater. If you're still printing tickets, they can be ticket back scenarios to take your key bank ticket back to a retail branch, opening a checking account and get a $50 deposit. Anything that bounces back to those retail partners. I wrote down, there's also entitlements for your series, Tim, you mentioned. If you have boxes, if you have clubs, if you have bars, spirits companies will love to put their name, one of their brands on your bar. Parking lots, garages, these are all things that exist now that for a very low cost piece of signage, quite frankly, that the brand will pay for. The theater, if you sell a sign to Key Bank, you should never have to pay for it. Key Bank and those brands are used to having to pay for their own signage. So that's not an expense that you need to take on. Sometimes it's an expense they'll have you include in the deal so that it comes out of a budget line item for them and not an additional budget line item, but it's something that brands are used to paying for. entryways coming in. There's lots of windows and wall space that you can do tastefully. I know when my wife and I, it was a cool call for me being on. My wife and I are season ticket holders. One of the 20,000 at Playhouse that Tim helped bring to Playhouse. And there's lots of windows from the parking garage. There's lots of windows on the areas. If you have multiple entrances, you can name those entrances, just like a Cleveland Browns or a Cavaliers. You have the Sherwin-Williams entrance and the Discount Drug Mart entrance. You guys can do those at your facilities too, and probably at a very applicable price for those brands, based on what they have to pay these huge sports teams. To Randy's point, there's an echelon that these sports teams like to take for those, and you could probably have a value opportunity for those brands to get involved with your facilities.
Okay. Thank you. And as far as individual artists, I know, I think we saw a preview of the list here, and obviously there's, you do have value to the other people that we've already mentioned. And in a case in point, I will show you how we used some individual artists to help support one of our sponsorship programs. So if we can go to the next slide here, because I want to make sure we give plenty of time for questions here. But I'll ask both you and Randy to kind of think about the process. If one of you want to take it from there.
I can start out. Or Ryan, do you want to go? Doesn't matter.
No, Randy, go ahead. You can start.
Well, if I can add a couple of things to what Ryan said, which might lead into this too, is that when we're thinking about who to target, and this is part of the process as well, Ryan talked about some of those people and the vendors that are spending money with you, and we like to call it eat your own dog food. Think about places like your healthcare, your payroll, your trash, your food and beverage, like you already mentioned. Sometimes you're spending a lot of money with those places. And so, make sure you hit them up. Every brand, they have multiple budgets. It's not just coming from foundational, which I know a lot of you are probably used to tapping into. When you look at an organization, they'll have a foundational budget, they'll have a marketing budget, they'll have a community relations budget, they'll have a human resources budget. And that human resources budget today carries a significant amount of weight, because brands are so tasked with retention and recruitment that more and more people are spending money in order to retain and recruit. So I just want to, start with that. The other thing is to think, when you're thinking about this, the process is you need to have complete buy-in from your organization, because if you don't have buy-in from the top to the bottom, you're going to struggle to execute on these opportunities, and it's going to feel very different for some people to want to get involved, because they're, some people may be used to only calling and asking for foundational dollars, not understanding that there are many, many other buckets of budgets that you can find money from. And Tim, you just said it, every brand out there, their job is to sell more, to more, for more. That's why they're in business. They're in business to make money. And so they have different buckets of budgets to tap into. So make sure you're asking the questions of where are those marketing dollars and how can you utilize them. And then the other thing I'd want to add with that too is that make it very authentic. So what does the brand stand for? What is their brand positioning, and where does it align with what you offer, right? So when you think about a curtain company, I mean, you all have, my guess is in the theater district, there's a curtain, there's a stage. What a perfect sponsor to have a curtain sponsor the curtains. So just think of where authenticity matches. Am I helping to answer your question, by the way, Tim?
Yeah. So I think also something you said to me the other day I thought was really, really important, because when we talk about getting the vendor list, who we're spending money with as an organization, we don't want to, this isn't a pay to play scenario. And I think something that you had talked about was really important. And so why don't you give a little example of that?
Cost, quality, and service. And so, what we have done in my past at 2 previous stops is, as we were looking at vendors, we would have them submit an RFP in order to earn our business. And we would have them walk through that RFP. And if you have a current vendor, it's amazing how some of your current vendors have probably jacked up their rates year over year over year. And maybe you have never even asked them, you may have been going up 10% year over year. And oh, by the way, CPI is 3 or between 3 and 8. So if you bring a group of people together in the same vertical, you have them provide cost, what is the cost to execute this thing? You base your decisions on cost, quality, and service. And then we used to also include, are they female or minority owned? That was very important to us. So once they submit all that information back to you, now you have a basis of what to work off of based on, you want somebody that's going to provide it for a good cost, good service, good quality, and are they female or minority owned? Now you go back as you're starting to figure out, who am I going to go with which vendor? And you tell them, okay, we want to make this decision, but it's really important that, we eat our own dog food. And what we mean by that is, if we're going to invest in you, we would like you to invest back in us. And it's not a pay to play. It's one of those things where we're going to come up with assets to show our fans that you are involved here. And so if it's waste management and waste removal, you all have trash receptacles in your venues. Why not go to that trash company that takes away your trash every Wednesday and ask them if they can put, Wayside Management, Rumpke, who am I missing here? Republic on all your trash receptacles. Can you have a community relations initiative for them? So it's not a pay to play. You're giving them something back for it. And it's coming from a separate budget. And that budget can be human resources, community relations, or marketing, but it's not coming from foundation.
Yeah.
One example there, Randy, that I'd jump in with, you're talking about trash. We at the end of the calendar year in 23, we did a deal with Kimball Waste and Recycling. And, it was, to your point, we went out to RFP and got pricing and everything for the service for our entire facility. And through that, I learned that they were having an issue with recruiting CDL drivers to drive their trucks and collect trash. So what we did was we gave them a banner on the side of our scoreboard right next to the highway. There were a lot of truck drivers drive by all the time. So we're filling a human resources need there in a marketing partnership, coupled in with service. So you just got to know the questions to ask and be open to getting feedback on what business issue the company is trying to solve for. In this instance with Kimball, it was recruiting.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is that, look at, if you have emails and you send out emails on a regular basis to whether they be season ticket members, or that is just plain gold because it's first party data. And every brand out there wants to have access to that, because the average open rate of emails is low from brands, but from somebody like theaters and passion points, it can be upwards 30 or 40% open rates. So there's a lot of little nuggets that you have that you may not realize you have, and think creatively about it, because there are definitely opportunities inside each and every single one of the properties you represent.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think this sparked thought in my mind that I know that we've all talked about, and that's data. Data is so important. Knowing what your numbers are, knowing what your open rate is, knowing how many unique visitors you have, and the statistics involved in that, because that helps collect that data. I know we've got a question in the chat, and Lowell will definitely address that here in a moment. But everyone can read through the process here, and I think that's important. But let me give you a couple of a real quick case study. I've got one with Lexus and Audi that we did at Playhouse Square, and I also have some other Playhouse Square examples. And I got to do a shout out to Autumn Kaiser, who was unable to join us today. She's the Senior Vice President of Revenue and Marketing for Playhouse Square, who's graciously allowed us to use some of her collateral material and how she tastefully integrates sponsorship into the delivery. But real quick, because I want to keep this concise as I possibly can. But when we approached Lexus about partnering, because we knew that they had a brand that they wanted to reach the audience at Playhouse Square, And so we created some opportunities to do that. And one of the things that we asked them the question, what is a pain point for you? And what's one of the challenges that you have? And it's like, well, every time we have new models coming out, we invite them out to the dealership. Well, if you get an invitation to go to the dealership to see the new model, you kind of know what you're going to get into. It's like, all right, I'm going to get sales pitch from these guys. So they would get 20 or 30 people to attend the dealership. So we flipped it and said, well, let's not do those anymore. Let's take those funds and let's do a show, and let's do what we do best, and that's create content, create a production for you. So I mentioned earlier about utilizing some local talent. We partnered with local dance troupe and Bill Wade's group in Inlet Dance, and I probably utilized them 2 or 3 times throughout their throughout the Lexus and Audi agreement, because it was a way to create a very interesting product unveil. This one here was that you see on the screen was one of their standard vehicles, the ES and the RX. But there was occasion where they introduced the hybrid, one of the first hybrids. And so we did a very nature show, and the dancers became much like you'd see in Lion King with the giraffes and antelopes and things. So there's ways to do this that really up the game. So we went from 20 to 30 at a dealership to having to cut it off at around 600 800 people attending this. And the trick to that was not only were they inviting their guests, their list, but we invited our donors and our targeted audience. It started to bring that to a different elevation. So next slide, please. Here's some additional answers. We utilized aerial artists, car displays. Ryan mentioned this in some of the assets. Think about what you do have, not what you don't have. Start thinking creatively. We're in the creative industry. I want to challenge you to think, what do I have that creates a way to highlight a brand that makes it tastefully integrated into what we do every day? Next slide. And I think it's Carol. So Carol, we've known each other a long time, but you've got a brand that's not a consumer, direct to consumer. You sell your product through architects and designers and things. So why would you partner with a arts organization?
Well, I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been a property and a brand, and in my current role, I am a brand. Little background, Mod Services is a family-owned business. Started over 35 years ago. We have 8 markets throughout the Midwest, and we feature, stunning hundreds of options in natural stone, engineered quartz, porcelain, semi-precious stone, and a new patented shower system. So our direct target is B2B, designers, architects, builders, fabricators, but we also market B2C because they drive the bus. So kind of like what pharmaceuticals do, we want to pique the interest of the homeowner, the consumer, so that they come to us first, and then they go to their builder or their architect or their fabricator or their designer, and they say, I want this material from Mott. So we're appealing both B2B and B2C. As a supplier, we can't sell direct to consumers, but we can steer them in our direction. We do in-kind partnerships through our surface materials, and it really, in the case of Playhouse Square and the City Club of Cleveland, it lets us hit our target audience, and having our materials on premise almost serves as a showroom per se in the venue. And even though there may not be labeling, there are opportunities to know that we are present there through the assets that we receive in exchange for our services such as digital media, print media, social media sharing, speaking opportunities, use of marks, official supplier status, and then there's additional benefits too, such as use of the venue, building brand loyalty and awareness throughout the community, throughout the arts, and throughout, the free speech, civic, corporate, governmental leadership. So in summary, as a brand, corporate marketing partnerships provide us with an opportunity to showcase our product to a target audience, build loyalty and brand awareness and association, not only to our target, but within the community.
Yeah, so some of the photos that you see on the screen here were ways that as projects were on the CapEx list, how do we afford these things? So there's two ways to make money, obviously. There's revenue generation or expense reduction. And so this is where a partnership, which may include some sponsorship, actually marketing dollars, but also some contributed trade that help reduce the cost of the project, is invaluable to organizations. And I'm preaching the choir here. But Carol's creativity in this and really explaining it to her owner and how we put these things together to make it beneficial for all is really kind of creative and craftful. So
yeah, it also frees up, Tim, if I can interject for 1 second.
Absolutely.
It frees up cash for the organization, because
Absolutely.
the cash they would be outputting, it reduces their budget and it frees up cash. And it also gives for a great, sponsorship alignment, and it diversifies your sponsor roster too. As long as it's budget reducing, these are just some of the benefits.
Absolutely. To keep moving, because we're running out of time, Jill, thank you. Something that we've coined, I don't know that we coined it, but something that we've adopted is tasteful sponsor integration. So a lot of people are saying, how do you put a logo and integrate into a performing arts center, into a venue? And so the photo on the left here is two great organizations, and this is one of Autumn's creative marketing brain on how she was able to take two images of both Playhouse Square and University Hospital and fuse those together. The other thing that we called, or I called, was direct need marketing. So the booster seats here with the sticker that was misplaced upside down, but this is targeting through their Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. This is addressing kids' needs. We also did this with Large Print Program for their eye institute and the audiology department, and so we would actually have some direct connections to those partnerships, AED devices, etc. So thinking differently really allowed us to continue to grow.
If I can add, Tim, it's authentic to what it is the brand does.
Absolutely.
So you're tying the authenticity of what they do with what it is you have. It's amplification at its finest.
Yeah, 100%. Key Bank State Theater, Key has put the naming rights on the State Theater. You can see that was tastefully done. We converted all of the what we call 3-sheet poster boards to digital. Not only did it promote obviously upcoming shows, but it was also another medium that we could incorporate partner messages. Next slide. So this has just come recently, and actually while we were sitting here, I got another one for an upcoming event. But here's how Playhouse Square and Autumn was able to incorporate their sponsors this week at Playhouse Square, something that they're going to do anyway. And so it was a way to rotate their partners through on the title banner. Peter Pan, bundling shows together. It's not a series, but it was a group of shows that were put together that Huntington had the opportunity to put their name on, but there's obviously several benefits from an entertainment standpoint and driving business back to them. Next slide. What do we got here? Let's see what we got. So going next, we've got, this is something we're working with Kappa on. We found a kind of a dead zone where it's not trafficked. An old food and beverage space that they thought they'd be using becomes a storage area. But we think that this could be converted into an Instagram moment. And this is a bad version of clip art, but something that could be tastefully done tying in a partner, having a bounce back through QR code or enter to win contesting, but make it special. Make it something that people want to then travel to this location. This also addresses some issues that outside touring shows or touring concerts are saying, hey, I want you to promote my show. Well, getting them to provide some artwork to be the star up there or having a green screen with their approval helps accomplish that. The next slide, you'll see here, this was the walk-in as we went to what was called the Dazzle Awards, which are the High School Musical Awards. But here's tastefully integrated with PNC. I thought the Barbie movie did a fantastic job of how you create social media firestorm. And you'll see here's some assets that we want you to consider. So now let's take a little question here. I'm going to read it. My eyes are getting old. What are some suggestions for straddling the line between being an organization that is generally identified as part of the arts, but whose value resides in impact generated by workforce and economic development? Conversely, the flip side can be a challenge when some don't choose to recognize you as more typical arts organization, especially when you are responsible for bringing film and media production, creating jobs and massive money to town. You're really a service organization, hence straddling the line. And this obviously is from Lola at the Greater Cleveland Film Commission. I actually am familiar with this. So, a past board chair, I had the privilege of doing it during COVID, so I didn't have a lot of fun. But this is a great example of a challenging when you don't necessarily own anything. You don't own the movies. You don't have a studio yet. So you're kind of in this flux where the economic impact is incredibly important and also very valuable to the partners that you do have. But as I think we mentioned earlier, I think I would immediately start thinking about who does benefit. So you've got rental car business, you've got the Home Depots and Lowe's of the world and Menards who are providing lumber and set designs. When these movie companies come to town, they're consuming products at a ravenous pace. So I think trying to develop some sort of an official preferred vendor program, preferred opportunity to engage in that. The other thing that I think that the Film Commission has done a good job is how to leverage the film when it does come out, or opportunity to take people on set. The experiential, which we really didn't even have a chance to really get to today, is such an important part of what brands are looking for. They want the opportunity to get something that nobody else can buy.
Money can't buy.
Yeah. So Ryan, Randy, I don't know if you have anything to jump in on that, or Carol, in regards to experiential, but those are valuable resources.
As a brand, I can second that. It's very important. It's very important. And I think it's something that if you can include that in your assets, find a way to do it or be creative and include it.
And we may take for granted what we do every day, and we don't realize that there are people out there who don't do what we do every day. And so when they get the chance to be on stage, even if it's a smaller stage, maybe for a child, it's huge opportunity that, again, money can't buy experiences are very, very valuable to brands, because they then utilize those to take care of consumers, and they win lifetime value. So think about what you have that is unique to you that nobody else can provide.
Yeah,
and there's several things. There's tons of things. You just have to sit and write and brainstorm.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
The only thing I'd add is on top of what Randy just said, is every theater, sports venue, park is all part of the community, and people are looking for experiences. And I've talked to, as Tim has, and Randy and Carol over the years of our careers, you've talked to people, and the things they remember are the things that they experience with their family, with their kids, with their mom and dad. That's what they remember. And that's really what everybody, including myself, is striving for, is developing those experiences so people recall the good times they had when they went to a show or they went to a sporting event or they rode the Ferris wheel on our property with their mom or dad. You're creating experiences so people can enjoy their time with their loved ones.
People remember stories 22 times more than they remember data and facts.
So the trick is to entwine that into your story.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Carol.
I just want to say it's a great opportunity for brands to entertain potential customers and clients as well. So it's very attractive.
Yeah. So Wilma Mullet, what organization are you with? Because I might need some data to help answer your question.
Tim, I'm not sure if Wilma can unmute, but Wilma is the executive director. Yeah, of Tuscarora's Arts Partnership.
Okay. So I guess the part of that question or answer that I think we would seek is every organization is going to be very, very unique. I will say that firsthand, coming out of Playhouse Square, starting a consulting business, going to Kappa thinking, oh, this should be very simple to start and rinse and repeat. And it wasn't. Where organizations are very different. So none of us do anything the same. Now, understanding what the Arts Partnership does, I'm kind of at a loss in what you do and how you do it. But I think happy to take a call with you, and any one of us would be happy to maybe talk through to find out, are there opportunities that we can identify, and maybe even suggest that you partner with X, Y, or Z, and here's how you potentially could do that. And if anyone wants, we've got 2 minutes. So feel free to jump on. Or Sarah, do you have any questions for us? I know this is probably new to you as well. So.
Well, I think this was a really constructive and instructive conversation with all of you today, and your profound knowledge as a group. And you're an excellent moderator, Tim. You came in just under the buzzer with time, so congratulations on that. I want to express my sincere gratitude to each of our speakers today, Tim, Randy, Ryan, Carol. Thank you so much for your time today. Again, I felt like this was really constructive use of everyone's time, and great to infuse some ideas from a different sector into the arts, which I think we can all learn from. So, as Tim said, please feel free to reach out to any of our speakers. I know they're being generous with their time and would be happy to connect with you and offer some additional insight. You see their contact information here. My contact information at CreativeOhio is also listed here. Please feel free to reach out to me if I can be of assistance to you. And do consider, if you are not already a member of CreativeOhio, joining CreativeOhio as a member organization or as an individual, and you can learn more on our website. We mentioned this was the inaugural edition of our webinar series, and we look forward to engaging this group and the rest of our membership in future webinars this year. Be on the lookout for some announcements about those topics. Again, it'll be a diverse number of topics that I know will be helpful to the sector at large. So thank you for everybody's attendance today. Again, thank you to our speakers. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.